Hi, my name is James Kimber. I'm a physician assistant and founder of PA Mentor Online, bringing you the best tips and tools you'll need to get into a PA program. On this channel, we do strategy videos for pre-PA students who are thinking about becoming a PA or currently in the application process, as well as interviews with students who used our services and successfully got into a PA program. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on any of the interviews, as it might be one of the programs that you're thinking about applying to. Or if you have specific questions about one of the interviews we've done, or just questions in general, don't forget to leave them down below in the comment section. Thank you.
Welcome to Physician Assistant Mentor Online.
Welcome back. As you can see, I got another shirt, so you probably already guessed the school. Today we're interviewing Jason, who got into Western University of Health Sciences Physician Assistant program. Jason, this was his first time up, and he came to us to work on his personal statement. Initially, he thought kind of had a good statement, but we worked with him a little bit, and he had a great statement after we were done. Jason applied to 5 programs and was interviewed by all 5. Waitlisted at 1 and got admitted to 3, and he picked Western. But I'm going to let Jason tell the rest of his story, and thanks for watching.
Okay, well, welcome back. Today we're interviewing somebody who got into the Western Physician Assistant program, and we'll be starting shortly. So if you go ahead and tell us your name, and well, I guess I already said the program, but go ahead and tell us the name of the program.
Yeah, so my name is Jason Brandlin, and I was recently accepted to Western University of Health Sciences for their class of 2022.
Oh, congratulations, Jason. You'll be probably the first class of the COVID season. So
Yeah.
this will be interesting. It'll be nice to check back with you maybe next year and see how that all turns out. But you start up next month, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a little over 2 weeks away or something like that, so I'm trying to keep the nerves at bay, but only so much you can do.
And how are they planning? Are you guys going to be doing this online virtually for at least the first part of the program?
Yeah, so it's a very fluid situation, as everyone knows, and it's constantly evolving. And so I feel very thankful that our faculty has been in contact with us through emails and Zoom meetings and trying to give us, the most up-to-date information as they can, as they have access to, because they're also following the university guidelines, county guidelines, state, et cetera. So far, we've only had a preview into the first term, which will run from August to December, and we've been told that it'll be primarily all lectures online, and then we'll be brought onto campus for like skills instruction in small groups, probably of 8 or 9 students, and that'll probably be once a month or so. I'm hoping for more, but obviously I want it to be safe, so that's what we're looking like for the first few months.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. For instance, why did you choose medicine as a career?
Yeah, so that'll come up in your interview probably, but for me, I just guess it was an early exposure. I have an uncle who is a physician, and so growing up, I was always visiting and hearing stories from the emergency department, and that just sort of inspired me at a young age that I wanted to do something similar, maybe as a professional. And as a student in grade school, middle school, etc., I always felt more drawn to the sciences. They're a little more interesting than, more the language arts. And so that definitely showed when I was filling out my application. I needed a lot of help with my personal statement. But anyways, that was sort of the how I got into medicine, was having that family member sort of introduce me to it.
Okay. And what about physician assistant? When did you, or how did you learn about this career?
Yeah, so I guess what it really started in late high school, early college. I was a multi-sport athlete, and I had some idea that I wanted to maybe go into physical therapy. And once I started college and sort of like looking at those prerequisites and what that journey was going to be like, also learned a little bit more about what the profession would entail. I decided, hey, maybe this isn't the best fit for me, and I maybe wanted to be involved with other or more aspects of an individual's care. And so I reached out again to my uncle to see what his advice was for, potential career fields that might look promising the next, 15, 20 years. And so he gave me a list of a few: nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, and one that I hadn't heard of, which was a PA. And so over the next couple of weeks, I did some research on all of these, and I found that I was most interested with, the physician assistant profession, just almost because it seemed too good to be true, in my opinion. The shorter duration of education and the lateral mobility between specialties, and the list goes on. It just sort of seemed like, maybe there was a catch. So I wanted to find out more, and I dove into some shadowing. But that's how I came upon the PA profession.
Okay. Where did you do your undergrad?
So out of high school, I attended a community college. I did all my general education classes and the bulk of my science prerequisites as well. And then I transferred to California State University, Long Beach, where I majored in health science with an option in community health education. And I didn't do any science prerequisites there. I just did my major coursework and got out. And then I still had about 4 prerequisite classes, science prereqs, that were remaining. And so I found a university close to my home, a private university that offers accelerated science classes in person. And I looked at their schedule, and I was going to be able to finish all those classes right before the application cycle closed. So I ended up taking about 4 more courses the summer after I graduated this 1 year ago. And that was how, I'm sorry, I got lost in the question. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kimber.
No, I was just asking where you did your undergrad.
Yeah, so that was sort of the end. I finished up my last classes at that private university, getting those science courses out of the way.
Okay. So speaking of those courses, what, if any, did you feel like gave you any trouble or that you struggled with, like chemistry, biochem, OChem?
Yeah, I would say it's probably no secret to a lot of undergrad students that OChem is very difficult. And for me, that was probably the most difficult course I took. I really liked general chemistry. I liked how it seemed more objective, and it was plug and chug a lot of the times, and there was always an answer. And then organic chemistry, I thought it was really interesting. Just, it was so different. It was a different animal, but I think it was not, you couldn't enjoy it because you were trying to stay afloat and fighting to pass this class. So that was definitely the most difficult class, but I thought it was cool, but yeah, very difficult in my opinion.
How about shadowing? How did you go about shadowing PAs?
So again, I felt lucky for my personal position and how I landed shadowing opportunities. So my family is friends with our primary care physician, and so I know him a little bit more personally. And I asked him, since he had a few PAs working in his office, and his son was actually a PA, and so he sort of helped educate me on the profession early on, and he was a mentor for me. And so anyways, I was able to shadow a few PAs in that office. And then later on, a few years ago, I landed a volunteering job at a hospital, just sort of as like a greeter ambassador. And so I was able to come into contact with a couple PAs at that hospital, and they allowed me to shadow. So that's how I sort of got hooked up. And I felt bad because a lot of times other, pre-PAs, my peers would ask me, "Oh, how did you get shadowing?" Or, "Oh, hey, can you ask them for me?" And it's like, I just sort of got lucky that I stumbled across these people. So it's difficult to find, but I was happy that I found some hours.
But we do, it's funny you would mention the volunteering at the hospital. I recommend that all the time. I tell students, I mean, when somebody emails me just randomly, I just delete, like, no, I get so many response. But when I'm at the hospital and somebody comes up to me, it's like, sure, yeah, of course, love to help you. It's different when you run into somebody. And volunteering at the hospital is a great opportunity.
Definitely.
What strengths do you think that you had applying to a PA program? I mean, you got in, so.
Yeah, I would. It's weird. I wouldn't call it a strength, but I feel like one of the only things I had going for me was I had strong grades. I had a good GPA, but I sort of felt like I needed to have that because I was a younger applicant. I was, just finishing up my degree, and I knew that I was lacking in the the life experience department and all my hours. So I felt like I had to sort of compensate that with having a good GPA. So I would say that was probably my biggest strength.
And since you mentioned, go ahead and if you don't mind telling us, how many hours did you have applying? How many patient care hours?
Yeah.
Roughly.
At the time of submission, I think I was just over 2,000 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What about
yes.
what about your shadowing hours? How many hours did you have there?
Not a lot. I would say maybe 40 or 50 or
Okay.
so.
That's the average. That is the
Okay.
average. What about your GPA? What was your GPA applying?
Overall, the cumulative was, I think, like a 3.8 or something. And I think that the science and, all those other sub GPAs were pretty close, 3.7, 3.8, maybe a 3.9. But anyway, so I definitely had to work for it though.
So how did you obtain your patient care hours?
So I went about it. I tried to get one of the quickest certifications I could. I got an EMT license. I did like 8 weeks of summer out of college. And then in those programs, they have you do ride-alongs as part of the training. And I had friends who were also EMTs running 911 calls. And I just didn't see it being very conducive to my learning, running, these tough 24, 40-hour shifts, and then also balancing full-time load at school. And so I just didn't. So even though I got the EMT license, I felt like that was going to make it harder for me to get that strong GPA I felt like I needed. And so I just tried to use my certification to apply for medical assistant positions.
Yeah.
I've just found like 10 or 15 postings on Craigslist and sent them everything. And I didn't have any other job experience other than like a grocery store.
Right.
So I just didn't hear back from anybody. And then one clinic, called me and said, "Hey, do you want to come in for an interview?" And rest is history. I got hired at a urgent care family medicine office as a back office MA. And then from there, once I had that, certification, the initial training, as well as the experience from being trained on the job as an MA, then that made it a little bit easier to get other hours. I was able to find more like that hospital volunteering position we talked about. I got an internship in community health education, working with like lower income communities. I felt like maybe having those extra things on my resume definitely helped me land other opportunities. But I think just getting that first foot in the door was the hardest.
Well, I hope if nothing else, this part of the interview, other people really pay attention to, because that's exactly what I try to tell people to do. Just get something, whatever the shortest, quickest pathway is. So EMT, whatever it is, just get out there. Back in the day, we used to tell people, it's so funny you mentioned that resource, we'd tell them, scour Craig's, find these MA jobs, because you don't, at least here in California, you don't have to have like a formal certification. And we used to tell them, just go to the clinic, if it happens to have their name or number, just go there, dress nice, turn in a resume, because if you're a college graduate or you're a college student, I'd much rather have you than someone that, didn't finish college or didn't finish high school. I mean, I know why you're doing it, but I know you'll be reliable because you need the hours, you want the reference. Anyway, that was perfect. That is exactly what I tell people to do. And right, once you've got the training, then you can go on and secure other positions as well. But smart. How many programs did you apply to?
So I applied to 5 programs that were around my home in Southern California.
Was this your first time applying?
This was my first cycle applying, yeah. I took a gap year after graduating and then submitted my applications and interviewed last cycle.
Okay, good. How did you go about choosing the programs that you did apply to?
So I was able to figure out the programs I wanted to apply to mainly on their location. I'm from Southern California, and I wanted to be near my support system like a lot of students. And I also knew that I want to practice out here after graduation. So I felt like if I could train out here, that'll be a huge help with trying to land my first job out of school. So location was big. And then the other, I guess, major criteria for me was their prerequisite list. I guess I applied to the programs that had less courses on them because I knew that I was sort of racing against the clock to finish my classes in time. So I applied to the 5 that had the more minimal lists.
Okay. So we just worked with you on your statement, correct?
Yeah, we did the
Okay.
personal statement. We did a couple edits.
Now, how did you feel about that process? I mean, a lot of people, they turn in their first draft with us and then they're a little surprised about what comes back. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was eye-opening in a great way, though. Sort of like a lot of students talk about. I read a bunch of sample essays online, and I sort of figured out or identified these common themes or whatever, and tried to use similar stories or whatnot in my personal statement. And I sent it off, and then I got it back, and it was basically, you need to take out about 3/4 of this, and you need to actually talk about you and your story. Don't
yes.
not this mumbo jumbo. And you really helped me see that clearly. And so that was, I think, a big part of me getting an interview to all the programs I applied to, was just having a personal statement. Once I finally had a good mentor, it really made it a lot easier.
So you did get interviewed by the programs you applied to.
Yeah, I got interviewed all 5 programs, and I attended all of them.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then out of the 5, how many, obviously you were accepted by Western. Did you get accepted by any of the other programs?
Yeah, so in total, I got 3 acceptances, a wait list, and then 1 denial after the interview. So that was a bummer, but very fortunate to have multiple admissions.
And how did you go about choosing Western?
Yeah, that was honestly a tougher decision than I thought it was going to be. I actually had to make a decision between 2 other programs maybe a month before that, and for me, definitely was the location, if I could commute to it or if I was going to have to relocate an hour or two, as well as the tuition, is what my debt was going to be like. So those were some of the bigger things that I weighed. Luckily, I felt that the programs were all established in the area, and so I didn't think that rotation sites were going to be much of an issue. So
Right.
I would say that the location and tuition were probably the biggest ones. I did talk to current students at all the programs I was accepted at, and their input. So just took me like a week or two I had to make that decision twice between 2 schools, because I felt like each school was great, and how was I going to decide one? And I felt
Right.
like no matter what, the grass was going to be greener, but I had to just make a decision. And so, but I think I made a great choice, and it was the best choice to go with Western University. I felt like I maybe made it a little bit harder for myself, because going into all the interviews, I didn't really have like a top choice. I don't know. I had this
Right.
a PA student had said something to me or at a conference one time that the best PA school is the one that accepts you. So
It
I didn't really care. I was like, anywhere that
The best PA school is the one, yeah, that you graduate from. Tell us about your CASPA experience. Were you able to fill it out right when the cycle opened, or did you have to wait a while?
So overall, the experience was good. I think that for the most part, that the website and the service runs pretty well, and it's pretty straightforward. But so in my case, the year prior to applying or submitting, I had made a CASPA profile and put in like demographic information. So I had like a small bit of familiarity with it. So then the following year, when I was planning to submit and it opened in April, I just sort of put it off. And so I had graduation coming up. I was trying to finish with all that. And I was like, oh, I already have a bunch of my info in there. It won't be that bad. And it just turned into like one of the most rough summers trying to do all my prereqs and my CASPA. And, I just was kicking myself for not, everyone in all your videos, everyone says, start it when it opens. And I wanted to say, honestly, start it now,
Yeah.
because a lot of that stuff carries over. Like if you would have just put in like your coursework or the experiences,
Yeah.
you're going to save yourself days and hours later on. If you just put it in now, even if you're submitting in 2 years, because, so I started late. I started basically in the summer, and it was just a rough ride trying to finish everything before the deadlines. So I made my application process a lot harder on myself by giving myself less amount of time, and I ended up like applying to all the schools. They had different deadlines, but each one of them I applied probably about a month ahead of their deadline, give or take a week, and so that was pretty sketchy in my opinion. So using
Okay.
CASPA and going through it was good, but the amount of time it took, yeah, that was a mistake on my part.
Okay. Well, so you actually just hit on the next question. So that's one. Were there any other mistakes, or to look back, you'd say, oh, I should have done this, or I would have done this differently?
Um, One mistake I was very close to make. I think I probably had some small grammatical errors, even though I checked it a million times. But anyways, one mistake I almost made was one of my programs. One of their letter of rec requirements was they wanted a practicing MD, and
Mm-hmm.
I had only had like a PA, a nurse practitioner, a volunteer, anyways. And so I was like about to submit too without this MD letter of rec, and so last second I had to call like my old boss and have him, write me a letter, and so that was a bit of a scramble overlooking that detail. So
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely recommend to thoroughly and frequently review those, because things could change too. I mean, they probably wouldn't change mid-cycle, but in case you miss something, you gotta definitely double check all that. Um, and then just advice or things I wish I would have known. I wish I would have just, when I put in all my demographics like that year prior to applying, I wish I would have put in my experiences or something, because it was just I found it hard to write or like describe my experiences in such a small space
Mm-hmm.
and still have like a meaningful description. So that took me a little bit longer to try and get that right, to say what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. So just definitely starting, a year earlier would have been great. And then
Okay.
when it came for the actual application cycle, I could have just sent out my letter of rec request
Right.
and worked on my personal statement. But you can work on the personal statement too before the application.
Yeah.
You know what the prompt's going to be. And
All right.
so, anyways, that was, yeah.
Okay, so this is the part that everybody wants to know or hear. That's why they all tune in.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for anybody who's applying now or thinking about applying maybe next year?
All right. So I'll start with people who are applying now. Is if you haven't, taken the advice already, you need to get going on your application from the, right now, ASAP as possible, like they say in the office. So definitely starting everything personal statement. It's much more of a beast than you think it is your first time applying. Maybe if you're a reapplicant, you definitely have a better grasp on things. But if it's your first time applying, you better get going. That would be my advice. But just more general advice for pre-PAs or anybody pre-health, honestly, I would say keep as many options and doors open as you can. Take general classes if you can. If at least more at the beginning, if a program requires some very specific immunology class or something, rather maybe hold off and wait and see if you're going to apply to that program,
Mhm.
and early on take some of the more general science classes, anatomy, physio, micro, that type of stuff. And also just not continuing on keeping options open. Don't burn any bridges with peers you have, professors, employers. I mean, that should just be a given with any profession, but definitely just keeping your options open, and you don't know who you're going to ask for a favor later on. So I think those are big pieces. If you have the opportunity to shadow, if you can do it in multiple settings with multiple specialties, that's the best way to do it. I know that's general advice that everyone gets. Also, I would say to really focus on your GPA. That's really hard to fix, and so you need to take it seriously while you're in those classes and not be complacent. Um, I'm sort of rambling here, but I'm just going off the top of my head. Volunteering is important, I think, not just so much as for something to put on your application, but for you as an individual as well. And that really, I think, promotes like unity in communities and helps, create those strong bonds. So don't just volunteer for the hours, do something that
Mhm.
you're going to enjoy, because that's also something that will probably come up in your interview, or something that you should be able to use it to demonstrate why you're a good applicant or why you're a good fit. As if you can sort of show them your passion with your volunteering, So take that a little more seriously than you may think if you just thought you're going to do a soup kitchen, a little bit. Definitely quality over quantity. They don't want to see somebody who did a bunch of volunteering at the end of their, application cycle. They want to be seeing somebody who's been doing it for years, little chunks or whatnot. And last piece of advice would definitely be to get a good mentor, at least one. I would say nowadays with social media, you can probably get a couple or at least be in contact with these people. But just having somebody who has been through the application process, had success of their own, and helped other applicants also find success is just going to be, extremely invaluable and just a tremendous advantage on your application, having that type of support. Because like we were talking about earlier with that personal statement, you have no clue, you think it's good, and then someone who's actually been down that road, it's like, hey, you're totally missing the mark here. So finding a good mentor early on, I think, would be great.
Right. Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I appreciate it, and good luck. I have no doubt you're going to do exceptionally well, and I hope you'll contact us if you have any questions or anything that we can do to further help you, but I'm sure you've got it all under control.
I don't know about having it all under control, but I wanted to thank you again for everything, for helping me get into a couple PA programs my first cycle. That was amazing and something I didn't think was going to happen. I thought it was sort of going to be like a warm up, trying to see what things were like. But I think having that solid personal statement is definitely what paved the way to get those interviews and so on. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And again, good luck to you, Jason. We'll probably follow up with you next year to see how your didactic year went.
Definitely. We'll be in touch. Take care.